I remember that day like it was yesterday. I had studied for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And today was the day. The day of the test result. Results for what, you may ask? Well, my international German exam, B2 Certificate Deutsch, or B2 Certificate Deutsch. What is it? Well, B2 is a qualification that tests the level of fluency that you have reached. It actually attempts to gauge your grasp of the language. It starts off at A2, which is the equivalent of a beginner, and goes all the way to C2, which is the equivalent of a native speaker or a proficient speaker. You see, I absolutely love the German language. I love languages in general. And once I started learning German in year 9, I just couldn't stop. And I didn't want to stop. I love everything about it. How it challenged me, how it opened me up to new horizons and opportunities. I love the culture. The food's pretty good. The rich and important history. And I love and adore the people. It was my desire and my goal to be fluent. The test took over 4 hours. Reading, writing, listening, speaking, grammar, the absolute works. I can tell you right now, I put absolutely everything that I had into it. And today was the day. The day of the test result. I sat there in the classroom and I listened as the teacher told us the outcome. I didn't pass. The disappointment must have been pretty evident on my face. But what came next, though fleeting when it was said, I have never forgotten. Well, I didn't expect you to pass anyway. Wow. In that moment, everything started spinning. I felt like I was sinking, to be honest, and I was absolutely shattered. Those very words of disbelief, well, they caused me to question all of my abilities. Maybe I really wasn't good enough to learn this language. What was the point of me even trying at all? Perhaps I should just give up on my goal of being fluent. Do you have any of these types of moments in your life? Have you ever had negative words spoken over you? Can you still remember exactly who that person was and exactly what those words were? My guess is you've probably answered yes to all 3 of those above questions. But why? Why do moments like these stay with us, even long after those very words have been spoken? It is because words actually have real power. And because words have power, what we choose to say, it matters a lot. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? Yeah, right. Words matter. Both life and death, they are in the power of our tongues. We can actually choose to speak life and not death. The importance of choosing our words wisely is actually a very prevalent lesson that is found in many areas of the Bible. However, today, our particular focus will be on Proverbs 12, verse 18. Proverbs 12, verse 18 reads, "There is one whose harsh words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise bring healing." Through this Proverbs, just as with all Proverbs, King Solomon is sharing sound advice that he is encouraging the reader to take on board so that they may go on to live life-giving and righteous lives full of wisdom. In fact, we see this very purpose in Solomon writing the Proverbs in the first chapter. We see it where he states in verses 2 to 4, to know wisdom and understanding, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, in justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. So, it follows then that there is probably knowledge and wisdom to be gained if we heed and if we follow the words of Proverbs 12, verse 18. There is one whose words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise bring healing. We see through this Proverbs a very clear and definitive contrast. Solomon is contrasting two types of people. They exist in our world today. The first is the one whose harsh words are like sword thrusts. Now, this is the type of person who uses their words to break down rather than build up. Their words are painful. They lack compassion. They lack thought. They lack empathy. These people are careless with their tongues. Like a sword, their words are dangerous. They are sharp. They are pointed. And they do real and serious damage. Their words leave a mark. They hit real deep and can cause internal bleeding. And just like a real stab wound, the damage can be hard to fix and can cause lifelong lasting effects. Now, these are the type of people that when they have nothing nice to say, well, they still go on and say anything at all. Goodness. Their words, they speak death, not life. Whether that be death of dreams and self-esteem, like I experienced that day in the classroom, death of hope, death of vision, death of emotion, or worse yet, death of a belief in a loving and personal God. The point here is these types of people, when they speak, nothing beautiful flourishes or blooms from the seeds of their comments. Hey, can I ask you, when you speak, do you seek to bring life? Or do you find that your words actually break people down? Do people enjoy being around you? Do people leave from being with you better than when they got there? Let us remember the words of Colossians 4, verse 6 when considering those questions. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. In contrast, the second part of Proverbs 12, verse 18 states that there is also those who are wise because their tongues bring healing. These are the people that are aware that words are not just words. These people know that words can actually heal and bring restoration. They use their words to build up rather than break down. They are always open to offering words of life and grace-laced truth and seek to be a source of encouragement and joy to everyone that they come across. They know that if they use their words wisely, they can help soften even the hardest of places, perhaps soften even the hardest of people. Now, these are the type of people that when they have nothing nice to say, guess what? They say nothing. Funny that. Their words, they speak life, not death. Can I ask you, when you speak, are your words life-giving? Are others built up and encouraged by their conversations with you? As Ephesians 4 verse 29 states, no corrupting talk is to come out of our mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. We are encouraged to use our tongues wisely. Did you notice the first two words of the Proverbs? They are, there is. There is. The proverb starts off with a pretty definitive term, perhaps pointing to the fact that there are and will probably always be those in life who speak harshly to others, cutting them down with cruel and sharp words. These people seeking to build themselves up off the backs of those that they break down. However, by the grace of God, we can make an intentional decision to go the other way. I'm very happy to say that I did not give up that day in the classroom. Though I did feel shattered and embarrassed and devastated, the encouraging words of my family and friends, well, they helped me to keep going. My family listened as I told them what had happened, and I was met with words of encouragement and love and prayer. My friends saw that I was sad and reminded me that they still cared, that they still saw me. Even after it had happened, days later, they still sent me texts to check on me. Through all of this, I was reminded that a moment of failure does not get to define us, and it is not necessarily define where any of us will end up in the future. I was reminded that I do not have to prove my worth to anyone because I am already worthy through Christ. Those words of disbelief spoken over me that day in the classroom, well, they were countered by many subsequent words of encouragement and life-giving truth. For me, words of death were subsequently conquered with words of life. Hey, I even went on to complete a major in German at university a couple of years later. All glory to God. You see, words have real power. We can cut against the grain. We can choose to use our words for good, to bring encouragement, to help build unity, to help foster healing. We can choose to speak life, not death. Take a moment right now. Take a moment and think of those significant people in your life. Those who have encouraged you and lifted you up. Those who have spoken words of life over you. Hey, perhaps today may be the day to say thank you. Perhaps pick up the phone, write a card, send a text, or even drop by now that we're allowed to do that. Your words may very well speak life into them in ways that you can never imagine. It's been a really hard time for a lot of people lately, and we need more encouragement rather than less in the world today. We can seek out those opportunities. We can encourage and lift people up in a world that often encourages us to do the opposite. We can choose to speak life, not death. What decision will you make today?